What's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of the OBR Prospect Spotlight here on the OBR Streaming Network. I'm your host, Jacob. I'm joined this week by the very handsome and dapper Bill Sparks. How we doing, man?
I am doing great. We are sitting down Thursday night, recording this, talking some safeties tonight. Which obviously the Browns, it's a need. People don't want to talk about it because they want to talk about offense, they want to talk about edge, they want to talk about corner. But we really need to talk about this safety group.
They want to talk about sexy positions. It's like you and I've had a lot of conversations like through DMs and stuff about offensive linemen, and like people hate when you talk about offensive linemen, but I'm like, you need them, man. You need it.
Yes.
And I think that's where this team is at safety as well. If you're checking us out on YouTube, by the way, make sure you hit that subscribe button, give us that thumbs up. Like Bill said, we are recording this on Thursday, and that is important because my safety 2, and I think he's your safety 2 as well, is playing on Friday in the playoff game. Or is he your number 1?
He's my number 1.
Okay. So my safety 2, your safety number 1 is playing in a playoff game Friday. So I'm going to give stats and stuff when we get there. Just keep that in mind that some of the stats and numbers may be different because he will have played a game by the time this actually releases on Saturday. So what we're going to do, we're going to go 3-1. Our third safety, our second safety, our first safety, and then we're going to give you a fourth safety. And for me, it's a day 3 guy. I'm just going to give you a guy that I really like. It's very interesting, kind of like his skill set. So, Bill, I'll give you the floor, man. Hit me with safety number 3.
Yeah, so my safety number 3, it's Nick Emenwari from South Carolina. Listen, if you had to create a safety prospect in a lab and give him some super soldier serum, that's Nick Emenwari. This guy is just a true out and out athlete. 6'3", 227. He looks closer to a modern day linebacker than he does a safety, but the things he does back there, he's very strong in tackling. He's a run first minded safety. But just because of that, he's got really quick feet in coverage. He can move sideline to sideline. He does really well covering tight ends. The only thing that I have an issue with is that his back pedal sometimes gets choppy, and it almost looks like he's shuffling his feet rather than an actual back pedal. And he also doesn't trust himself. There's a lot of times he panics when he's downfield with some of these tight ends, and he kind of gets grabby.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why, but he is my safety 3. My favorite game was this year when he played Oklahoma. 11 tackles, 2 interceptions. He had the Sooners offense in a blender, fighting for their life. And he's my safety 3. I think he's a top 50 guy. And he reminds me a lot of a guy that just got paid by the Cardinals, Budda Baker, in that same mold of a very athletic safety who can do a lot of different things for you. But Jacob, what do you have on your safety 3?
It's also Nick Emenwari. It was Kamari Ramsey, who just recently said he was going back to school, which is always interesting when some of these higher picks that like, because I think he's up there in like a day 2 probably guys where it's kind of where I had Ramsey. But Emenwari is there. Yeah. The comp to a linebacker is really interesting because some people, I heard it on the NFL Stock Exchange podcast. They're like, I think he's a linebacker. And I'm like, he'll hit you like he's a linebacker.
Right.
Like he's looking for that. I like his length, his overall length and kind of versatility. You talked about it. Just some splits for him. 143 is this. I'll make sure. Yes. Okay. I was make sure I wasn't clicked on somebody else real quick. 143 snaps in the slot, 192 deep, 397 in the box. So he's doing most of his work in the box. And if you look at the splits prior to that, last year he had more snaps in the box, the most snaps in the box, and he was kind of split it between the box and as a deep safety in 2022. But I think in the box for front facing closer to the line of scrimmage, I think is where he's at his best. Although his coverage skills are fantastic, so you feel great about putting him back there as a deep safety if you need to. 31.9 passer rating allowed right now. Like that's in the SEC. That's a good South Carolina defense, and I wish they were playing and not Clemson. in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
But he's got 4 interceptions this year. What is it? 4 forced incompletions. I love just the alignment versatility. I think he's got a high IQ, understands route concepts and what they're going to try to do to him. I don't know. He wants to hit you like a linebacker. Has no problem sticking his head in where it's congested, but you can throw him in the back. I'm looking at these guys, and I'm gonna talk about them here in a second. You're really gonna talk about them here in a second. I'm looking at these guys that can potentially replace Rodney McLeod's role in Cleveland, especially if, and I am currently assuming that they're running it back coaching staff, at least most of them. And I don't think Schwartz would be a change. At one point, I was very mad at him, but I'm over it now. You got in Imanwari and Xavier Watts and some of these other guys, I think can take that role. And so that's kind of what I'm looking at. But I will pass it to you for number 2.
Yeah, so safety number 2 for me. It's probably safety number 1 for a lot of folks, but he's number 2 for me because I really love our safety 1, and I'm going to pound and flip and break the table for him when we get there. But safety number 2 is Malachi Starks from Georgia. I mean, this is a guy just like with Emanwari. He's a very strong run defender. You know, he's got a quick trigger. He's gonna pull it, hit downhill, and go. Very strong tackler. He's also a good athlete. He's not on the level that Emanwari is, but he's still a good athletic safety. Very quick feet, breaking in and out of the ball. But the big thing, and I've seen it pop on tape several times watching him this season, is that when he sinks his hips versus faster receivers, it's a little slow to get there.
Yep.
And it's concerning for me because especially with those faster receivers, the Bonds, the Worthies of the world, he's got to be able to go with it. But I think this is a very good run safety. He's not on the level in terms of Emanwari, in terms of athletic ability, in terms of coverage ability. Some people have talked about putting him at cornerback. I'm not there. I think he is a tried and true safety. Yeah. Maybe if you want to do a little bit of slot now and again, but I think this is a guy that's tried and true safety. You think like a Jamal Adams type, a guy you put at or around the line of scrimmage, get him in some blitz situations, get after the quarterback, or just run through a B gap and just smack somebody's helmet off. That's what Starks is for me. But Jake, what do you see on him?
He's got 250 snaps this year in the slot. So if you're going to play some kind of corner, it's going to be slot. I don't want to put him on the outside. The hips thing is what popped off on me, man. It's like hesitation to sink his hips. And it's like, I get it. I don't know if he's just he's worried he's going to get beat, but then you would kind of think that he would sink him too early and not too late. I'm not entirely sure about that. He is safety 1 for me. He wants to hit you in the backfield if he can. Like that dude is going to come trigger downhill. Even as a deep safety, he played majority of his snaps, 385 snaps were as a deep safety, and he only played 190 in the box. I think he can thrive in the box, but he played most of them deep, which is actually a little bit surprising because watching his tape when he kind of jumps off, I think some of that stuff down in the box and in the slot is kind of where I think he jumps off the tape the most, because I do like you think he's a better run defender than coverage player. It's not saying that he's a bad coverage player. It's just like him. Emanwari wants to play linebacker. Malachi Starks wants to hit you in the backfield, drop you for a loss. That Jamal Adams role is so. I think he could do so much of what Jamal Adams did especially when he first got to Seattle. Like Seattle made him a pass rusher randomly at times. Malachi Starks could do that. Like I think he can do those things because when he gets back, he's a good athlete. I know we don't want to necessarily put him up there at the freaky athlete level, but he's a good athlete. I think he's got really good ball skills when the ball's in the air. He can play physical and get after it. I don't know what my dog's barking at. He's going crazy.
That's fine. Mine do it too. They're just happy to hear about safety play. That's what it is.
He's just loving everything about the safety play. It's just like it's a good safety class. It's a really good safety class.
It is. It's a very good safety class.
I love the way he drives people to the ground once he wraps them up. That's my favorite thing is when you can get a guy that uses proper technique as a safety, because you get guys that like to hit and trigger downhill like this, that like to lower their shoulder and just try to knock you out. Like Malachi Starks will do some of that because he can, but he's also an intelligent player and understands when he needs to just form tackle and take them to the ground, and he'll do those sorts of things. Like I had it at 7.4% missed tackles. He had 6 missed tackles, but he had 58 solos and 17 assists this year. So you're not worried about that kind of stuff. Oh yeah, the quick feet to get in and out of breaks. You talked about that. A very good burst when he's driving on the ball. I'm surprised he didn't have more turnovers because of the ball skills and the things that he does when it's in the air. He only had the 1 interception this year, I believe. Yeah, just the 1 interception.
I believe it was 1 or 2. Yeah, it wasn't very many.
That really surprised me because I think he has better ball skills than what that says. But I think he can make the play when it's in the air. I have him at safety 1. I have him as a top 15 player in this class. And I just think he moves so well laterally, like especially and downhill. Like, yeah, you're right. The higher speed guys where he needs to sink his hips and flip and get going, he's going to struggle against some of those guys. But I love him covering tight ends. I love it because he's got the athleticism, the physicality to do those sorts of things. What's his? Did I tell you how big he was? 6'1", 205. I don't know if I told you.
I would say 6'1", 205. The one thing that stood out for me for Malachi Starks was his Alabama game this season. It was an absolute. It was a masterclass in safety play, and I'm watching it, and I'm like, okay, I see the vision of where everybody's talking about him, a top 10, top 15 guy. But then it never showed up again. It's almost like that Georgia and Kirby Smart and that defense went away from what made him great, which is what confused me the most. You know, I think he's my safety 2, and I've got a top 40 grade on him. I think he could fall out of the first round, but with the folks that need safety, I can see him in a first round capacity. I really can. Teams like Miami, Indianapolis, the Browns, they need a safety like him. It's so frustrating because, like you talked about, 1 interception. Like, I have a guy who has the ability, he has the ball hawk mentality, he has the skill set to do it. Where's the production? And it's just not there. And that's the most frustrating part as to why I can't put him as my safety 1.
And I can understand that like you said, when you can see it on the tape, when you see the ball skills, when you see him driving on the ball and making those plays, you're like, man, I just need you. Like, I have a note that he attacks the ball in the air with strong hands and he knocks it away. I'd like to see him catch it more than knock it away. Like, I see too often opportunities for him to end a drive where he just makes it an incomplete pass. I feel like some of that stuff's a little nitpicky on my part because I think he's a really good football player. Yeah, that's what I've got on Malachi Starks. So I will give you the floor for Xavier Watts, your safety 1, Notre Dame safety. My number 2, but it depends on the way testing goes. I may slide him up to number 1 because I just did a preview for the OBR. It's out now if you want to check it out. Doing 3 prospects for the Indiana SMU game, and I just watched a bunch more Xavier Watts. Whew.
Yeah. So you hit the nail on the head there. So Xavier Watts, Notre Dame safety. I mean, this is a guy, he's got the size to start, 6 foot, 203, not as big as Malachi, not as big as Emanwari, but the big thing is he's got a ball hawk mentality and excellent instincts and coverage. I mean, last season he had 7 interceptions. This season, before the game on Friday versus Indiana, he's got 5, 12 interceptions in the last 2 years. The production's there. He also can play multiple positions in the secondary. He can play safety. He can play slot. He could even play some corner against a slower receiver. It's not going to be, a Bond or a Worthy match, but if you had to match him up against a slower guy, he could do it. He's also physical. He has that linebacker mentality. He can hit hard and fast. The one thing that we don't talk about, he's got a really good football IQ. And he can transition smoothly from offense to defense, defense to offense. You see that mind working. I would feel comfortable putting a green dot on him if I had to. He has that kind of football IQ. He also has solid athletic skills. This isn't a guy that's going to be like an Emanwari, but if he ran a high 4.4, I wouldn't be shocked because I think he's got that athletic ability. Obviously, the big thing that I see from him is his tackling consistency. He just gets too aggressive sometimes and gets in his own way, and it leads to missed tackles. In addition to that, I would like to see him work on some man coverage skills. There's a lot of times against tight ends and running backs where it's just not as good as his zone coverage is. But all in all, this is my safety one. This is a guy that I would firmly plant in that first round range. He's got an early second round grade for me right now just because of that testing concern athletically. But if he tests out like I think he will, he'll be a first round guy for me. The comp is a juiced up version of Ronnie Hickman.
Yeah.
And you see it. This is a guy, you juice him up, give him some, super soldier serum, and you got a juiced up Ronnie Hickman. And I think he would be a perfect fit in Cleveland, and I would absolutely love that. So that way I can purchase his jersey and feel really good about it. Jacob, what do you think about Xavier?
That Rodney McLeod role that I talked about earlier. Oh God.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've got his breakdown as 127 snaps in the slot, 226 in the box, and 340 deep coverage. He was a second straight All-American season this year. Interesting enough, didn't start his collegiate career as a safety. He started as a wide receiver. Yeah, that's right. I think he started his collegiate career as a
wide receiver and converted.
And then he was like, you know what? Actually, I will literally play every position in the defensive backfield here real quick. Every snap's at full speed. I will never have an effort question about Xavier Watts when he's on the field. Like, there is never going to be a situation where I'm like, oh, does Xavier Watts give everything? No, he gave you everything he had. It's just fantastic. I've got it here. High football IQ, diagnoses plays quickly, has an explosive trigger to react to what he sees. Yeah, he lacks elite. I could put some air quotes on it. He lacks elite athletes' explosive acceleration and long speed, but he's not slow. It's just he needs to get a little bit going, and sometimes. So if you're putting him up against like a Tyreek Hill, I don't want to put him at press man. Like, give him a little bit of cushion or something of that nature. Although he's physical, so like the press situation might help him there.
Yeah.
I've got the same thing you said. Sometimes he gets lazy tackling. Sometimes he just gets a little lazy. That's really the difference between him and Malachi for me. Like that is where one becomes one and one becomes two, is just because I'm like, he gets lazy with his form. He's still going at 100% running full force at him. Just, you're kind of like, there's more missed tackles there than I would care for, especially when he plays most of his snaps as a deep safety. I really can't have my deep safety missing tackles because that's literally that's a
touchdown. That's exactly what that is.
It's like literally a safety is like, I remember I played safety as a kid, and I remember they're like, you're it, man. You have to make the play because nobody else is behind you. I can remember that, like as an adolescent kid, just getting told that. The ball production, man, 12 interceptions in 2 years. Going into the playoffs. I think he goes anywhere between late first, early third. I think he's somewhere in there. I think he can sneak into the first. It'll just depend on some of the other stuff. But yeah, I don't think his athletic testing is going to blow you away. And maybe that means he slides into the second, and maybe Cleveland's sitting there and they do what they did when another very talented Notre Dame player slipped into the second round. And although they wouldn't have to trade up for this one because they're picking in the 30s instead of like the 60s, but 50s or wherever the heck they were picking. But I think the fit, like, he may be safety number 2, but his fit is number 1 for Cleveland, I think. So, all right, that's 3 through 1 for us. Now we're going to give you a bonus player each, just some guys we like, and I'll give you the floor first, Bill.
Yeah, so my bonus player, I'm just going to keep on rolling. I'm going to go to safety 4, and it's Kevin Winston Jr. out of Penn State. This is a guy, he's in that Emanwari size mold, 6'2", 205. I think he's probably one of the best tacklers in this class at safety, bar none. He's not, I think I think he had a 2% missed tackle rate last season, if I'm not mistaken. He doesn't miss them often. He also, he's an explosive downhill thumper type of guy, but he has the athletic ability to go sideline to sideline.
He had 0 missed tackles last year.
There you go. Even better.
He's 2 this year.
Yeah. He doesn't miss them often. And my biggest knocks on him, though, is in coverage situations downfield, he gets real handsy. And a lot of the ones that you watch are going to be called at the next level at OPI, at DPI, at illegal contact. The other concern, and I've had trouble pinning it down, I've reached out to a couple of folks over in Pennsylvania that I have sources and contacts with, is this long-term quote unquote injury that he has. Yeah. There's no real definition on what it actually is. I think it's just them shutting him down without actually saying they're shutting him down. But obviously it's going to be a question at the combine. What medical issue did you have? Are you healed? Are you 100%? Is he going to be able to test? I think if he tests, he is going to blow the roof off, which is pretty crazy to say, because at Penn State, you have 2 other athletic nightmares in Tyler Warren and Abdul Carter. And I think Kevin Winston's going to test better than both of them. And that's saying something.
Yeah, because Abdul Carter's a freak, man.
Yeah, it's just a freak of nature. And I think Winston's going to test better than both of them. But this is a guy I think you could feasibly use in some form or fashion at corner, probably in the slot. But his money's going to be made in the box, at the line of scrimmage, in the deep part of the field. Kind of like a Malcolm Jenkins when he was at Ohio State, and then he switched to a safety role in the next level. I think that's where Kevin Winston's going to be. I think he's going to be a full-time safety at the next level, but that's my safety 4 and a guy that you should watch out for. Jacob, I'll give the floor to you to give off your safety special.
Are you ready for this? I'm going day 3. I'm going Malachi Moore, the safety from Alabama. His where he is all over the place in terms of big boards. PFF's got him in the 200s, which is like, okay, go ahead, let me get him in the 6th round. That's totally fine. Another guy plays all over the place. Interesting for him, last year he was a slot corner. So in 2023 for Alabama, he played 468 snaps in the slot, 153 in the box, 69 deep. This year, 349 of his snaps were deep, 219 in the box, and he only played 181 snaps. He played 318 slot snaps in 2022 as well. So a lot of experience there. Had his best year this year, though, playing primarily in the box and deeper. But he's got a ton of experience, like I said, playing slot corner. And the Browns may be in a position where they need to figure something out with their slot corner situation, especially if they decide one from Greg Newsome. He had a forced incompletion rate of 24.1% this year. That is elite. 52.7 passer rating. He better in coverage than he is in run defense, but run defense grade from PFF was a 77, so he can do both of those sorts of things. I think he has really good range, and he's a ball hawk when he's in the deep. He is looking to find the way. He's going to attack the ball in the air. He can move sideline to sideline, really rangy athlete. He can drop down, play man coverage in the slot, play in the box. 6 foot even, probably under 200 pounds. They list him at 198. Yeah. I think he's closer probably to 192, 193, somewhere in that range. So he's a little thinner, and I think that's part of why they moved him more deep than out of the slot, just because I think he's just kind of a little bit lean for the physicality of the run game. But that doesn't mean he shies away from the physicality. He's just a little bit lean. He's just a lean player. I think he's a secure tackler in the open field. I really like it. What was his? He had 5 missed tackles this year, which was a missed tackle rate of 6.8%. So in a pretty good spot there. I think he's a guy that's just kind of getting forgot about a little bit. If he's there somewhere day 3, you've got a guy that has a ton of experience as a slot corner. So if something happens where you get decimated by injuries, and we've seen that happen in Cleveland, then you could kick him out there. He's done it. He's done it at a high level, but I think he's a really good rangy, good athlete, really smart ball hawk kind of guy with good ball skills. And that's why I think he is I think he's like safety 7 or 8, probably for me, closer to 10 than anything. But
Yeah.
he's just one of those like names where it's like, hey, it's the 5th round and he's chilling.
And that's where I have him graded as the 5th round. There's one big plus, one big and one big minus. The big plus that nobody ever really talks about, he's got special teams value. This is a guy that can return kicks, return punts. He could be a gunner for you. And obviously we have bits and pieces of it here and there in that return game. So having more maybe able to return punts and kicks for us is another checkbox. I am concerned about his injury history a little bit, just in the fact that there's a lot of nicks, dings, a lot of little things. But by that same token, he also had a head injury in week 3 of this year and then was ready to go in the very next game. Yeah. So this is a guy, he's going to get injured and he's going to get dinged up, but he's not going to not play through it. It's just at what point is his body going to give out on him? And I think that's why he'll probably fall down the board a little bit, because teams are going to be kind of gun shy about that. I mean, you and I talked about it earlier. You know, the Browns are one of the highest teams when it comes to players on IR and the PUP and out. I think 18 players is what we're up to now.
Yeah.
So that's where my cause for concern is that injury history a little bit. But I think all in all, there's enough talent here to say if it's round 4, I have him as a round 5 grade. It's right in that range and he's still there. Pull the trigger.
Yeah. I don't think you're going to find a more versatile guy at that point in the draft that has experience being successful in multiple positions like that. I just don't think, and I think, like you said, he's going to be in that range. He's absolutely going to be in that range. And then it's like, oh, okay, what am I going to do there?
Right.
Thank you guys so much for joining us for another episode. We're coming up close on the end of the season, and which means these videos are going to get cranked up. We may be going back to a weekly mock draft format on top of everything else. So be prepared for all the things that are coming up. I got a lot of crazy shit.
Ooh.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but I just did. All right, we got.
We'll edit it in post. It's fine.
I'm not editing it. I'm not going to tell anybody about it. But Bill, real quick before we sign off, man, tell everybody where they can find your content.
Absolutely. So you can find my content on X at Sparks Scouting is where I am. I'm also an analyst for at Draft Detectives. I'm a writer and analyst for CadesDraftRoom.com. I also partner with DraftProfessor.com as a writer and analyst and do weekly podcasts with them for the Mrs. R Relevant podcast. So if you're on YouTube right now, not only should you like, share, and subscribe to the OBR and turn on that bell notification, but then slide on over to NFL Draft Fanatic, no I in Fanatic, and subscribe and turn on the notifications there as well. I know that's a lot, but make sure you check out my content. I've got all sorts of content. I got NFL draft scouting reports. I've got analysis. I've got NFL picks each and every week. I've got a multitude of content all on X at Spark Scouting, and I link it all everywhere else. So come check it out. Whether you like it or you hate it, I enjoy it because you're interacting with it. Let's have a discourse. Let's talk about it.
Some spicy mock drafts.
Let me tell you, the one I put out today, some people got very angry, especially if you live in Cincinnati. I may have got some hate mail for having them take Ashton Jeanty.
Oh boy, I did not see that. I'll have to go look at that.
Yeah, I had Ashton Jeanty at 13, and people were not happy. But it's like, look, if I have an elite quarterback in Joe Burrow and I have an elite wide receiver talent in Jamar Chase, what's the best way to get him opened up in zone coverage? Well, I don't know. Why don't we just bring one of the best running backs in the entire college football who should have been the Heisman? That's me saying that, and that was my Heisman vote. But that's neither here nor there. But if you have a guy like Ashton Jeanty, who's also probably going to break Barry Sanders' single-season rushing record, you put him in the backfield, you're asking teams now to stop Ashton Jeanty, Jamar Chase, Chase Brown. You're asking them to stop a lot of that. And I know it's a Browns podcast. We shouldn't really talk about the Bengals in high regard, but we have to be realistic. Jim Schwartz would have his work cut out for him scheming that up. Maybe he gets a guy like Xavier Watts to counter Ashton Jeanty. I don't know.
Might work out.
Yeah. See how we come full circle?
All right, guys, thank you so much. We'll see you guys again next week. As always, go Browns.